I'm so excited today, guys, because I've always thought to cluttering and decluttering, there's something more than just stuffing a box here or giving something to Goodwill. Well, guess what? We have international best-selling author Mel Mason. She is a clutter expert. She also she was a sexual abuse survivor, actually. She grew up depressed and suicidal and surrounded by what? Clutter. After returning from the brink of despair and escaping her own chaos, she realized that the outside is just a mirror of the inside. The clutter keeps returning if you address only the outside without changing the inside. And that's why you can clear a surface or organize your closet. Haven't we all done that one? And it's cluttered back up again in no time. Well, that set her mission on our mission to empower people worldwide to get free from clutter inside and out so they can experience happiness and abundance in every area, not just one area, but every area of their life. And Mel Mason, you are going to empower us today because we are going to declutter at a deeper dive level. And I look forward to it. I'll tell you, I'm one of those kind, the declutterers. And I love the way that you embrace the fact that it's just not sloughing giving a box to Goodwill and calling it a day.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me, Jody. It's an honor to be here with you. And I love getting to talk about this topic. So let's go.
Let's dig in. I got to ask my favorite question. How are you living in the energy of your legacy now?
How am I living in the energy of my legacy now? Well, let's just see. I mean, I'm constantly creating amazing things. I just recently moved back to San Diego, and found out that the clutter expert, all of her belongings can fit in a 4x10 storage unit. Who can say that? 4x10 storage unit. Everything I own fits in a 4x10 storage unit. I freaking love that. And I still feel like I have too much stuff. Even when I moved, I'm like, really? It's still a lot, even though it's not. And so, I mean, living in the legacy, and it's all about, ultimately what I'm really about is removing the interference, because clutter is really interference. It's interference from you living your birthright and thriving. So every single human being on the planet was born to thrive, not born to suffer and be miserable and be poor and be cluttered or overweight or depressed or whatever. We were born to thrive. And so if we're not thriving in every area of our life, all that means is there's some clutter, there's some interference. And that's what I specialize in, because people think the clutter, it's all about the stuff, but it's not. That's just the symptom. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, what does self-care mean to you in all this?
Self-care?
Yeah,
Self-care.
how do you take care of yourself? Because I know you're decluttering, but what about your own self-care? What does that mean to you? How do you interpret that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's me is filling my cup up first, because if I don't have a full cup, I'm trying to give to you from the contents of my cup versus the overflow. And so it's very important for me. So one of the things, one of the manifestations of clutter that I had for a long time was being too busy, not enough time, didn't make any time for myself at all. It was one of the things that I didn't do. Self-care, what was self-care, right? But when I first started putting myself first and my happiness first, I had to start learning how to do that. And so I started with just taking 5 minutes a day just for myself, just to be present with myself and my own experience and willing to look. And by being willing to do that consistently, I started creating corresponding energetic space within myself. And what started to happen was my priorities started to shift, and I started to create more space in my calendar for me. And then the priorities shifted, and it went from scheduling everybody else before me to me scheduling me first. So I have a lot of passions. I have a lot of things that I'm interested in. I love to rock climb. I run. I love to read. I love to study. I love to do things. And so now I schedule me first. I schedule my time to take care of me, whether it's going to the gym, rock climbing, or just taking a walk, or spending time with friends, or talking with family. I schedule those things first, and then I schedule my clients and my business around that. So the priorities flipped. I put me first and take care of me first, because if I don't, I've got nothing to give to you.
Do you ever find that that's kind of challenging for you, or is this something that's so regular for you that you just can stick to it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, human beings, like there's days where like it goes really well, and then there's other days where I'm like, I'm busy and I'm in it, and I'm like in a project or in a launch, and I'm just like nonstop. So like life isn't flatline, right? And sometimes we're in a sprint and sometimes we're in a jog. And so sometimes when I'm in a sprint in my business, certain things kind of go by the wayside for a little bit. So yeah, I don't always necessarily take those walks or get to the gym as much as I want. But then once that period is over, it's like re-getting back into the groove. So it's an ebb and flow. We're never like ever going to be like do the same thing every day for the rest of our life. It's just not possible. We won't do it the same.
Yeah, I love that. And, one of the things that really just resonated, made me even more curious about you was that, we're talking about self-care. You do value that. Why are you a marathon runner? To me, that doesn't go with self-care. What am I missing here? Okay.
I love this. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is so perfect because actually, up until 2.5 years ago, I swore I would never run. Why? Because I want to keep all my original body parts. I don't want new hips. I don't want new knees. I didn't want replacement body parts so strongly that I never had wisdom teeth to be removed. Let's just put it that way. So I've never had my wisdom teeth removed because they didn't grow in because I didn't want them removed, right? So I want to keep all my original body parts. Well, I have a couple friends that coach women's fat loss, and I was on a call with them one day, and they were talking about how they're doing this next level thing for their women so it could be a lifestyle. They're going to train for this half marathon and marathon. And they said, you should train with us. And this was my response, pardon my French, but I said, I don't fucking run. I don't run. I want all my original body parts. I tried it before. It was really painful. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't walk. I couldn't get on the toilet or off the toilet. Like, why do people do this to themselves? And then I see them runners on the street and they're miserable. Why do people do this to themselves? That's what I was thinking, right? And then my friend's like, well, I can teach you how to run with proper form so you don't have that happen. And I was like, well, I'm really active. I hike all the time. I love being outdoors. I love being on the trail. Maybe I might like it. So I'll give it a shot if I can learn how to do this without needing to lose my knees or my hips or anything like that. And come to find out, I started training and of course I'm an Aries, so I'm not going to say yes and do the half marathon. I had to say yes for the full, right? And if I'm going to fly all the way to the island of Kauai for the marathon, I'm going to do the whole thing, not the half, right? So I said yes, and then I started training, and then I fell in love with it. I was really shocked that I fell in love with running. And running, what's really great about running for self-care, when you run with proper form, you're not actually doing damage to your body. You're strengthening your body. But the thing about running that I love is that it's all mental. It's really all mental. 99% mental, 1% mental. Because it's all in your mind what you're capable of. And so every time you're running, you're up against you and only you. It's you and yourself and your resistance. And you have to take yourself on every day. And so it's like, it's being able to push through and see what you're capable of. And so running is a huge form of self-care because it gets the endorphins going, it gets all the feel-good stuff going, it builds my muscle strength, my legs look incredible. I used to hate my legs. My legs are freaking amazing now. I used to wear like really long shorts to hide my legs. Now I'm like, oh my God, I love my legs. So yeah, it's amazing for self-care if you know how to run with proper form.
Yeah, well, we're talking another conversation that there really is, because when you had said that to me, I was like, running's running, right? It's like you walk, it's like you brush your teeth. And it was very interesting. It isn't like that. There really and truly is a proper way to run. And all this time in grammar school and everything, they sure never taught us that.
No, but if we paid attention to how we ran when we were kids, we knew how to run properly. My coach actually taught me it's like running like we were kids. You don't actually run, you fall forward and you catch yourself. You literally like lean forward and fall and your legs are catching. So you're not striding. If you're a sprinter, it's different, but like long distance runners, and just a little caveat, I'm not technically a marathoner, I'm an ultra marathoner because I did a 50K.
Oh my gosh.
And my long-term goal is actually, They're in the middle of it right now. The winner's already been announced, but the Badwater Ultra is one of my big long-term hairy goals. It's America's toughest foot race. It starts in Badwater Basin in July. It just started on a couple days ago.
Wait, where's
in the
Badwater? Where is this Badwater Basin? What is
Death
that?
Valley National Park. It is the lowest point in the contiguous U.S., and it's typically 120 plus degrees that they're running in. It gets so hot that they run on the stripe in the road because your shoes will melt on the asphalt.
Oh my gosh.
So that's one of my big, hairy, audacious goals in the future.
Well, yeah, but also when you went to Kauai, that wasn't anything to sneeze at.
No, we found out later after we were done training and we crossed the finish line that it's the 4th hardest marathon in the entire world.
You're talking about mindset. I'm just kind of curious, Mel. What if you had known ahead of time
exactly
that it was the 4th? Would you have done it? I mean, because we're talking a little bit about mindset here. I'm just kind of curious because that would have scared.
So knowing my personality and that I'm an Aries and who I had as my coach, yeah, I still would have been
terrified. You would have still done it. Oh, wow.
I would have still trained for it. Yeah.
Still done.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know that I was actually going to be able to finish it because I wound up having a lot of injuries just because of my IT band and stuff. Like I had some stuff that took me out for a while.
I'm sorry, what is IT band? I'm sorry. I wanted to understand this. IT band?
It's your iliotibial band. It's basically your stabilizer. It's a connective tissue that comes from your hip, runs down on the outside of your thigh to your knee. So I had some stuff going on with that, but I also, not a running injury, nothing to do with running. I had a minor calf tear from something else happened, just like a spontaneous calf tear. It was the strangest thing. And so it took me out of my training plan for a lot of weeks. So my longest run that I had ever done before I went to the marathon was a 15-mile run. I had to run 26 miles. I had to run 11 miles more than I had ever run for this marathon on the course that is like the hardest course, like the 4th hardest course in the world. So it's hot. It's hard because of the heat. It's super, super hot and humid. And it's hard because of the hills. There's so many hills and elevation. I think there was like 2,000 or 3,000 feet in elevation gain over the course of the 26 miles. 26.2 technically.
Now, I know you're an Aries and 26. Hey, listen, I do every one too. But I know you're an Aries and Aries has to go, as you say, to the nth degree. But come on, what kept you going? What kept you going? I mean, this is just amazing to me.
Commitment. I'm committed out of my mind. When I commit to something, it's like I'm just committed and I see it through to the end. Like I'm not gonna train for an entire 9 months, pay to fly all the way to Kauai to not finish the race, right? So here, I'll share another story with you. So my 50K trail race was in Las Vegas at Red Rock Canyon National Park. 3 miles in, my IT band started acting up. A 50K is 31 miles. It's like 31 point something miles, right? So it's a little less than 5 miles more than a marathon, but it's also trail versus road, this particular one. So 3 miles in, my IT band starts acting up. I'm not supposed to run on it. So I do a lot more walking than running, but my stubborn ass was like, I did not train all year and drive all the way here to DNF, which means do not finish, right? I'm not going to DNF because of this IT ban. So I continued to go for another 27 miles on my pissed off IT band and completed the race in about 10 and a half hours. Now, and that was just one of the obstacles. I also started my cycle super, super heavy that day on the race. And the second aid station that we hit, they had run out of water. So there was this panic, we're in the middle of the desert. Am I going to have any water? I'm out of water. Where do I get water? So there's all this panic, all this stuff in the first 10 miles that happened. And still keep going. And yeah, I was just committed AF and determined. Some of my most powerful qualities are being committed AF and determined and persistent.
Committed AF?
As fuck. Committed as fuck.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't get all the initials all the time. Sorry.
That's all good.
I mean, I'm still back at LOL. I still have conversations with my son about the value of LOL, because I said, what's so funny if you laugh out loud and you're not really laughing? But that's another conversation. That is just really something. I mean, so how does the marathoning help you with your clutter, help you with your, blend in with you, integrate with you?
Yeah, I mean, the root of what I teach, like the clutter, the physical clutter isn't the issue. That's just the symptom, right?
Right.
So the symptom is the stuff, but it's a symptom of what I call internal clutter. And what is this internal clutter that we all have? So if you're human, you have it. Whether you have physical clutter in your environment or not, you might identify with some of the other manifestations that this internal clutter will show up as. But as the internal clutter is all of the unprocessed emotions that we experience, but we don't know what to do with when we have a traumatic event or a painful event or some kind of event or any event that happens, and we don't have the skills, or we're not taught how to feel our emotions. We're taught to shove them down, don't cry, don't do this, shut up, be quiet, whatever we're told, right? So the emotions get stuck. They get stuck in our cells and they become clutter. And when we have these experiences, we're also meaning making machines. We have to make up meaning to everything. Everything means something. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? So we're always making up meaning. So every time an event happens and we have an experience, we then make up a meaning about it. That's our meaning. It's our perception. Doesn't mean it's true, but we make up a meaning about it. And that meaning that we make up becomes our belief. And the belief then becomes our operating system, because we're like computers. And that belief then will generate your thought patterns, which then create your reality, right? So when I'm running, I get to be in and deal with all of that mental internal clutter, all of the limiting beliefs that want to tell me to stop, want to tell me to give up, that I just can't make it, I'm too tired, or whatever. It's breaking through all of that stuff every day. Every time I run, it's breaking through all of the limitations, all of the mental clutter, all of the stuff that stops you.
Is that why you get a high? Like
Okay,
they say,
so
the runner's high. I mean, I know the body and how that is, but does this contribute to that at all? The
so
runners, whatever they call it.
okay, so my background, we haven't really dove into this, but I have a background with a lot of drugs and alcohol in it. Like I have a very heavy drug and alcohol history. I was a crack cocaine addict when I was 18 years old. I was addicted to crystal meth in my 20s. I was
Okay.
homeless. So when I heard runner's high, I was really excited. I'm like, oh, what's this runner's high? I want a runner's high. Let's
A
go.
drug.
Yeah. I've run a lot. I've never had a runner's high. To me, a high is totally different than what a runner's high is. I guess a runner's high is that feeling when everything just feels good and it's smooth and it's
Oh,
going and whatever. I guess I've experienced that. But when you ask me about a run, when I think runner's high, like I think I'm getting high. So for me, it was never really high, but it's a good
okay.
feeling of this, like, it feels like you could just keep going and nothing's going to stop you. Like you just feel really good on top of the world and everything just feels smooth. But I wouldn't liken it to a high.
I get where you're coming from. No, I know. I really get where you're coming from because of yeah, I know. Because my perception is, when I was in high school, they talked about the psychedelic drugs, et cetera. And I know that now there's some belief system where you do some sort of counseling and use some of the psychedelic drugs. And immediately I go to, oh my God, we did that in high school. And it really wasn't that effective, guys. And I know that there's a different belief system and other people have different takes on that. And I get it.
Well,
I really do.
it's also different, like doing psychedelics when you're partying versus doing it with a trained facilitator who's supporting you in going in and dealing with the inner clutter.
Right. Right. I mean, I know that's the belief. That's a lot of clutter to be on drugs. And
Oh yeah.
and I really want you to know that I'm inspired and I respect the fact I've been having the last 45, 50 years, I've had a lot of contact with addicts. And to be able to get out of that personal clutter, that hell, takes so much just commitment and just to really be sick and tired of being sick and tired but that to keep that, they always say my willingness came from pain, and my recovery comes from my higher power. And that's so tough.
Yeah. I mean, and the addiction, like the addiction is just another manifestation of clutter. So for your listeners out there, they're like, I don't have clutter. Like the internal clutter doesn't just show up as the physical stuff, because the outside is just a mirror of the inside. So we all know the law of gravity. It's a law in operation in the universe, right? You don't have to believe in it for it to work, right? If you jump off a building without a parachute, you probably won't make it. You're going to fall, right? You're not going to float. So we can agree that you don't need, we can agree that you don't need to believe in gravity for it to work, right? So laws don't need to be believed in. They just work, right? Whether you believe in it or not. So there's other laws in operation in the universe. One of them is the principle of correspondence, which states as above, so below, or as within, so without. And what that means is your outside is always going to be reflecting you back to you, because we as human beings, we cannot see ourselves. We are sitting inside the jar trying to read the label from the inside, and we cannot.
I love that.
So God put this great thing in life for us. He gave us our body, he gave us our environment, and he gave us other people to reflect us back to us, right? And so if the outside is mirroring the inside, if you've got physical clutter on the outside, all that means is if you've got some clutter on the inside. But if you don't have clutter on the outside, and you're human, you still have clutter on the inside. So maybe you have some of these other manifestations. You might relate to some of this. So maybe the addiction piece, right? Maybe it's not hardcore addiction like drugs and alcohol, but maybe you're a social media scroller, a Netflix binger, or a sugar addict, or whatever your thing is, right? We all have a thing, right? We all have our stuff. It can show up as being overweight. If you're carrying extra weight on your body, that's body clutter, right? If you're too busy and don't have enough time, that's another form of clutter, right? If you don't say no to people and you don't have healthy boundaries, clutter. If you're in the debt cycle, you get into debt, you get out of debt, you get into debt, you get out of debt. There's clutter. If you can't access abundance in your life, there's clutter. And that's what I specialize in, is removing the interference so that you can thrive in every area of your life. Because it's not about the physical clutter. That's just the symptom. What's going to happen when the clutter is not an issue anymore and you really want to live the life of your dreams? Because you can't even think about what that is if you've got all this clutter right now, right? You have no idea what's even possible.
And to envision what's possible, I would think would be very motivating.
It would be motivating if people were able to. But one of the biggest things that I find is that this inner clutter, this interference, really keeps you from being able to even see what's possible. So most of my clients that come to me have extreme clutter, like years and years and years of clutter. Like people would call it, I don't use labels like hoarders or anything. I don't buy into labels because it implies permanence. Are there hoarding tendencies and behaviors? Absolutely. So a lot of my clients have a lot of stuff. They have the hoarding tendencies and behaviors where it's a lot of stuff, right? And it doesn't go away overnight. It's not a one and done thing. Like that's the thing. It's just like they all come to me and it's just a mirror representation of what's going on inside. And until we get to the root, that stuff doesn't go away. But when you get to the root is when you actually have the lasting change.
I would believe that. Would you please share with our listeners how you can help them with their clutter?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, that the outside is only the mirror of the inside, right? And if we really want to get honest and boil it down to a simple point, the reason why any form of clutter manifests, whether it's the physical stuff, the weight, being too busy, addiction, whatever it is, the reason why, if you boil it down to one simple thing, comes down to this, and write this down. It is an unwillingness to look. I don't want to see you. I don't know what to do with you. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to look. I don't want to see what weight I am. I don't want to see what I'm putting in my mouth. I don't want to look at my bank account. I don't want to look at my bills. I don't want to look. I'm unwilling. Okay. And if you're unwilling to look at what's going on out there, whatever out here, what that really is saying, because the outside is a mirror of the inside, is that you're not willing to look within. And so the secret sauce is the willingness to look. And so it's the willingness to look. And then as you become willing to look, addressing and releasing the inner clutter as it reveals itself, because the more you look, the more will reveal itself. But you have to be willing to look first. And as we begin to look, the inner clutter begins to reveal itself. And then we start addressing the inner clutter. And as you clear the inner clutter, as you become willing to look, you create corresponding energetic space within you. And then because the outside is a mirror, the outside has to match. Now, you might think I'm crazy by saying this, and I thought I was crazy too until I've watched my clients keep getting results by doing this for over 10 years. When it happened to just me, I thought it was a fluke. When I looked back in my life and I was like, oh my God, I just did this and this happened, because we didn't talk about this in the beginning, but like you couldn't walk in my room when I was a kid. Like there were no paths. People have paths. I didn't have paths. Like the entire floor was covered. Trash, filth, you name it, it was completely covered. You couldn't walk in my room. And I didn't care about cleaning it. I didn't want to live. I wanted to die. I didn't care about getting organized. And so when I learned how to become willing to look and I started doing the looking, I still wasn't saying, oh, I needed to get organized. But what happened is that I spontaneously and effortlessly started to create order in my life. And I went from that chaotic kid to someone who loves creating order out of chaos, and everything has to have a place and be in its place. And that shift happened from the inside out without me ever saying, oh, I should get organized, without me ever scheduling time to organize, making time for it. It happened as a result of the willingness to look and address the inner clutter that had been going on, because I had a ton of inner clutter. I mean, my outsides matched my insides. I had a lot of abuse. I had a lot of abandonment, sexual, emotional, my parents divorced, you name it. Like I had all of that before I was even 15 years old. And so like, yeah, it was a mess. So to see that just the willingness to look shifted me, and then watching it happen in my clients when they protest and they don't believe me, but they do it anyway, and then they get the results, that's like the greatest feeling in the world. Because now they say, that Mel thing is happening. They call it that Mel thing. That Mel thing is happening. I'm spontaneously clearing stuff. I just found myself cleaning this the other day, or I just found myself doing this the other day, or whatever it is. And it's like, that's what happens when you're willing to do the work, when you're willing to look. That's how I help people.
And that's a big help. Thank you for helping us at LifeMaven Podcast, because the clutter can block us from a deeper and a richer way of life.
Yeah.
Clutter expert, you're number one.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And can I just leave your audience with a couple words before we wrap up?
Go for it.
Yeah, because I always just want to, because the only requirement to get free from any manifestation of clutter that you have in your life is your presence. Your presence is required. You get to become willing to look at your life, at every area of your life, so that you can thrive. And if you want to learn more, you can download my book at freegiftfrommel.com. I wrote Freedom from Clutter, and it's definitely not about this stuff. So freegiftfrommel.com.
And we will also have all that information and text that goes with the video as well.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you.